You're listening to the Karmic Mirror podcast, where we explore the wisdom tucked within the layers of the self-help world.
Together, we bridge the gap between esoteric teachings and practical tools for everyday life, with self-love and personal growth at the heart of each conversation.
Whether you're a seasoned seeker or just beginning your path, join us and uncover the magic within and around you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Karmic Mirror. Today, I am so excited and honored to welcome a truly heart-centered guest to the podcast. Nancy Yeates is a spiritual life coach, minister, and deeply intuitive practitioner of havening and tension tapping techniques. Her gift is helping people live and love from the heart. She doesn't just teach healing, she embodies it. And I know this firsthand because this is a very personal episode for me, as I've worked with Nancy for the past 2 years. And so I know firsthand that her perspectives, shifts that happen in her presence are nothing short of powerful. What makes Nancy's work so special is that she teaches and coaches directly from her heart. We even have fun while we do it and laugh sometimes, depending on the topics. She is not here to fix anyone. She's here to walk with you, support you, and help you come home to yourself. Her greatest joy is seeing life from new perspectives and helping others do the same. Because when we shift our lens, we shift our life. Welcome, Nancy.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure, and it has been a complete joy to work with you, and now in a new forum. Thank you so much.
I'm so honored to be able to spread the work you do and all of your messages and just you and your soul to our community. So we can't wait to share Nancy's wisdom, energy, and magic with you. Hi, Michelle. I know you're here super intrigued and curious as well.
Yeah, I am totally open and I'm excited to learn about Nancy and learn from Nancy. And just secondhand, I've known Allie all the time she's been working with you, Nancy, and she sometimes will share a little bit of her own personal, revelations or in things that have shifted and moved. And I always find it really fascinating. And so I'm excited to learn. I'm excited to hear more.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. One of my foundational things is that we all remain curious and open. Even as a practitioner, yes, I can sense and feel things, but truthfully, how things get wired into you or, get instilled in each and every one of us is different. And so remaining curious and open to absolutely learn and to grow and to shift and to change based on each other's experiences. And so thank you, Allie, for saying, I'm not here to fix anyone. And one of the things I resented as I worked with different people over the years is, oh, I'm going to fix you. No, boo, don't. No, I don't want any fixing. Thanks.
And I think Michelle's smiling and she's shaking her head. And I think you can connect why I've needed this message the last couple of years with my healing, and that healing is not linear. And so for our guests just joining us on the journey, how Nancy got into my radar is that she is, and I won't define your relationship with my dearest Laura and Devaji, but she was my life coach. Really, I would say my first spiritual awakening. And she really fostered and gave me the space of trust and really feeling authentic and seen. And as a result, as trust doesn't come very easy to me, people I trust full-heartedly. And when my big bang happened 2 years ago, at some point, Laura just said, I think you need to call Nancy. And because her and I have built this relationship, I know hands down, I got to call Nancy. And we still work together, and I'll probably be calling you in the next week or two for another session. And I think that that's where this all really came to fruition, because Michelle has just been a lifeline for me too, of Karmic Mirror. Hello, we see our growth and our strength in others and our mirrors. And I think she was actually the one, Nancy, who said, would she come on the podcast? And I was like, and it's not that I didn't want you on, but it was a little bit, I'm feeling very high energy this morning because it's really personal. But as a 3/5 in human design, I am meant to show people my journey in that. So I'm just So obsessed that you're on today and so happy to be sharing you with our audience. All right, let's talk a little bit, Nancy. I know you're not super down the rabbit hole of astrology and human design. You know a little bit, but tell us what you know about your astrology. You know your sun. How do you resonate with your sun in Taurus?
Oh my gosh, I am a Taurus through and through. Of course, the stubbornness, really like the simple pleasures of life and groundedness and stability are really important to me. And I am loyal through and through, almost to a fault, and just solid. I mean, that's for me what it means to be a Taurus.
Yeah, I agree. And then I pulled up your moon in Libra, your Pisces rising. And then when we look at your human design, your energy is a projector, your authority is a splenic, your profile is 2-5. Now, these are all expansions. But Michelle, what were you saying when you took a look at just these highlights earlier about Nancy? You were saying, oh, no wonder. Do you recall what you were saying?
Oh, you know what? Well, when I was reading a little bit of your intake form and just kind of looking over the outline and trying to think of, what other questions might I have, and then seeing your big three in astrology and in human design, I thought how fascinating it is when you could have no understanding of the depth of your chart in any of these systems and still be living and embodying it so deeply because to me Taurus sun, I mean, Taurus is like the grounded aspects of Venus, I think, right? And Libra is like the like heavenly qualities of Venus. If I were to describe the two, they're both ruled by the planet Venus. So it speaks to this, like what you're saying about being heart-centered and being deeply embodied. And I think people always consider Taurus, we always hear the word stubborn, but I think what you said about being super loyal is like that higher frequency of Taurus, because stubborn isn't always like I'm stubborn and hard-headed. Stubborn sometimes means like I will love you through and through, or I will hold you through and through. And I see that, I know that you share a birthday with my mom on
Thank
May
you so
6th.
much.
So happy belated. And I know this about her to be true very much so that she is super, super loyal and sometimes stubborn in how much she will really hold people down in so many ways. And it goes in many expressions, but I really love that. And I thought about the Pisces rising is like, I don't know, I think Pisces rising is like the essence of soul worker energy. Because that's what it feels like. It's like this very ethereal presence of yeah, and almost like a lot of intuition and a lot of almost maybe psychic capabilities, or just having that kind of maybe more natural connection or draw to that like other realms or other, higher frequencies. At least that's what I think or feel with Pisces rising. And it makes perfect sense that you'd be a splenic authority in human design, because in human design, the spleen represents your intuition. And so everything you do is intuition based, is just feeling it and sensing in the now, like instantly getting that instant feeling of, and I think I read this somewhere, or maybe Ali said, that maybe you might feel something and maybe it's when you're working with someone, but not always, but having also the discernment and the intuition of when to share, when to let someone else come to their own realization. And I think it's like intuition on like 10,000 maybe, having that splenic authority, but it makes such perfect sense. And even the projector energy, like projectors are the guides. They're here to just see like the bigger picture and guide us versus being in the weeds of doing all the doing, which makes perfect sense also for the work that you do. And because I would imagine, I know very, very little, and I'm going to learn a lot today, but about tapping and having, but I would imagine that there is an element of having to be like holding a space so deeply with a person while also being able to step back and observe everything going on simultaneously, which I think is really cool. It's like you're like, I know about my Taurus sun, but then also maybe your intuition in your body knew all of this already as you live it and embody it, which is really cool too.
Thank you so much for that because didn't know all that. And yes, I live it. And Laura and I joke about this all the time. It's best that I don't have all the knowledge. we laugh all the time that I'm usually the last person to know, the last one to be invited to the party. And it's like, yeah, we see you. Stop doing
Yeah.
all that, you know, because this is who you are and embodying it and living it. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to have all the knowledge about it. But again, when we live wholeheartedly and, you know, part of my journey was, again, I'm going to fix everyone else so then eventually I'll be okay. And caught up in the doing, and
Yeah.
it was more about learning just to
Mhm.
be who you are, be who spirit, God, higher power, source, whatever you want to call it, created you to be. And also, again,
Mhm.
supporting others in doing that. I don't know what your curriculum is here on the planet. I half the time don't even know my own. And so working through that and sifting through
Mhm.
that and the discernment of, oh, wow, what is this here to teach me? What is this here to show me? How am I expected to grow and to learn from this? And a lot of time getting out of my head and back into my heart and back into my body.
Yeah, it's been, and for those again, Laura is my first spiritual life coach and dear friend of Nancy's as well when she talks about that. And I think that it's also why I've found such a home in your community. And I would say like your community, Nancy, because this you're in Laura's world feels, like a community and energy, and I'm getting chills there. But I've really found this home and a place to really feel seen in that. And one of the reasons is because you share so openly your journey. And as a three line, specifically in human design, learning from life bumping into me, it's really helpful for me to hear your journeys, your reflections, your stories as they relate to others, because it helps me to see the possibilities for me or the options for me and just how I'm built. And so it goes full circle back to that, Nancy. A theme in Karmic Mirror is you're wonderfully and beautifully made, and your gifts are yours. And it's only in the angst of trying to shift to be what we're not where we can find blocks. And so even that 2-5, Nancy, that two is you're just the natural, just the things you're meant to be good at. Michelle's got it too. You're just going to be good at it. And other people may have
Yeah.
to go about getting that expertise or their knowledge or the natural a different way in that, but it will just come very easy to you. And of course, that 5 line. Hello, we get to see the complex, the esoteric, and really make it digestible for the collective. And again, that's what you and your realm have helped me with. I think I remember like 10 years ago, don't tell me God, don't say it's God, don't say it's spirit. And in this realm, I don't care who the fuck you think it is. Like spirit, God, intention, just like let's roll with it. And you see 10 years later, that's my growth of that I can take. I don't pause when someone says God or source or light, but that's what being in this community has meant to me, like inclusivity, authenticity, and really being seen.
Mm.
Yeah, and that whole spirit, God, higher power thing, like if you were going to tell me I was going to be a minister or I was going to go and become ordained and what? Are you nuts? And it
Yeah.
wasn't cool. Like I could read all these spiritual books, but as long as I was under the covers in my own bed or hiding in the closet, then I was okay. But no one should ever find out that that's what I'm doing. And eventually my worlds needed to collide again to get back to this is who I'm naturally meant to be. And I've never been attached to the title of reverend but there is energy, a force, whatever you want to call it, that has been leading, guiding, directing, and ordering my steps. And if that's Holy Spirit, if that's God, if that's, I don't know, a tree out on in the woods. Okay. It's a life force. It's an energy. Okay.
I love that so much. I won't go on my soapbox because that's not what the episode is about today. We're talking about you. But gosh, I could roll out a whole scroll of all my just all the thoughts that circulate around higher power. And I think the one thing I will share is that being someone who is so in tune with your body, with your intuition and that inner knowing versus being so cerebral, I think is what we need more in the world. What the entire broad strokes of religion needs is to be less thinking and less man-made and more in our hearts and in our intuition, because that's where you open up to all of the expressions of God, source, higher power, when you can realize that everything is so deeply connected, and it's not how much can we think and how much can we control, but how much can we just open up to. And so I think you just embody that, and I had to share because
Yeah.
it's something that I'm really, really passionate about. Is just the ways that we try to control these narratives throughout the course of history, when the truth is, and so much speaks to your 2-5 profile, because having that 2 line of being and your profile in human design, this is like your personality in essence, and it's 2 numbers because we don't do life alone. There's the version of us that we see so naturally and consciously, and then there's what's reflected back to us in our environment and through the people in our lives that we kind of grow into. And so being that 2 line, I have a 5-2, so mine are flipped. And so for me, that natural, I don't know why I know the things I know, is oftentimes has to be reflected back to me through people, versus yours is like very conscious. This is something you know to be true about yourself and you feel it deeply. And I think that actually really, really demonstrates so perfectly why what you do, how you do things the way you do, how you're called to this path, which is where I want to go next. But I just had to shout that out because it's really fascinating. I've never met someone who's a 2-5. So it's like all of these really cool revelations coming as you talk, because I'm like, that's why it's come so naturally. All these things that in my mind, I'm like, why don't people see it? But you're like, no, I'm just living it. This is exactly who I am. And it comes naturally. And I really admire that. I think that's so, it's very exciting to talk to you. So I'm curious to know, just if there was maybe an experience or something that was a catalyst maybe to put you into this path of everything that you're doing, healing work, all of this world.
It's not ironic. However, I sometimes have a tendency to believe I was born into the wrong family. And truthfully, they are my people and perfect. And again, the more I journey into who I get to be, the more I recognize and acknowledge that my biological family was exactly who I was intended to, again, reflect back to me who I needed to be in the world. It was never safe for me to feel. It was always more important to feed the intellect and be smarter and better and faster. And again, feeding the intellect and the ego, and come from, how can I say it? Pride is probably the best word. And just never, for myself, never feeling like, wow, it's safe for me to be. I am a feeler. I am very sensitive. I was that puppy dog that would love you for forever, even though you kicked me, abused me, threw me out in the yard. I'm going to come back with my tail wagging, and what are we going to do next? But you just beat the crap out of me. And okay, I'll be who I think you need me to be. And it got very painful. So, for instance, success looked like get a job in corporate America, do the 9 to 5, go into Manhattan, and you're going to be happy. I was miserable inside. I hated who I was. I hated who I had become. I hated I loved the industry. It was like a drug. I was in title insurance, real estate. And the more we closed deals, the more I would get off on that energy, that thrill of, wow, we conquered another thing. But inside who I was, cutthroat, and I'll step over you, and and not caring about how we got there, it just It felt horrible to be me. And so a wonderful woman, Ian Van Zant, happened to show up on Oprah. And, thank you, Oprah, for all the many conversations that she opened all of us to. But for whatever reason, Iyanla and her materials and her willingness to share her story, good, bad, ugly, whatever it was. And I thought, I've never seen this done before. That someone openly shared the traumas, the dramas, the victories, the crash and burns, everything, every aspect of her life on national TV. Like, are you nuts? We're supposed to keep all that secret and hidden. And no, you get the 9 to 5 and do the thing according to, and forgive me, what a male dominated and white society says you're supposed to do. And I was like, well, damn, I want some of that. And so I studied and read and blah, blah, blah. And, again, hid in my bedroom because it wasn't cool and no one should know that I was reading this kind of stuff. But again, it allowed me to become who I was intended to be and not fitting into somebody else's mold or somebody else's paradigm or somebody's expectations of who I could be and what I could do in the world, but really giving myself permission to get in touch with my heart and recognizing it was okay that I do sense and I do feel and I do love and all the things, and not from up here. Not because I learned it from a book similar to you. I don't know how I know what I know. But some of this stuff, I've known it forever. And it's like, whoa, okay, where did that come from? Don't know, don't care, just grateful it showed up. But yeah, it just got too painful in my body to fit into all of these molds that and roles that I thought I needed to do and be and all the things. So I set out to become a psychologist because, again, if I could fix everybody else, then eventually I could be okay. But again, that was feeding my head and not my heart. And so worked a full-time job, was going for a psychology degree, and heard internally, you need to go and study with that woman. What?
Yeah.
Don't even know
She's
if
on
she
Oprah.
teaches.
Can I find her in the yellow pages? Like the internet.
Right, like,
Like,
what? Don't know where she is. Don't know if she teaches. Don't have any clue, but clear as a bell, just like we're all talking, you need to go study with that woman. Oh, okay. I have no idea how this is going to happen. And again, one thing led to another. It's okay. I'll fill out an application. I'll go to her school in Maryland. Don't know how the heck I'm going to get to Maryland from New Jersey. And of course, in my mind, I'm going to drive back and forth every single day. Well, that's not what the program is none of that. And eventually dropped out of going after my psychology degree because I recognized, no, this is what my heart, this is what my spirit needs at this time.
and the force is strong with that one, Nancy. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but because Laura also studied under Iyanla, right? And I was living in Tampa, and Laura kept saying, you really got to, I think it was Wonder Woman weekend. I think it's evolved at this point with Intervisions, but wouldn't you know it? Who got a job a year and a half later in Baltimore, Maryland? And when I went up, I said, Laura, I just know I have to cut. The universe is literally moving me to Maryland to get me in this energy with these women. And it was, I mean, I could afford it at the time. I was just really in scarcity, but it was that click, just like you, Nancy, of, ooh, there's something here. And it is very interesting because we're like 10 years later, and look how Iyanla's work and your work, Nancy, and Laura's work is still filling my cup and helping me and serve me. And now we're getting to get exposure to our audience and Michelle. So just wanted to throw that in there as well. When divine source wants you to be somewhere, they're going to figure out a way to make it happen, whether you're kicking and screaming or you go willingly.
Well, and honestly, because I
Yeah.
came from such an ingrained background of intellect, I fought and fussed and kicked and screamed. That was
Yeah.
the cleaned up version of it. And again, Laura and I laugh all the time. If anyone saw a picture of, I mean, I think that was 2002 when I first, and I hadn't done a workshop, I hadn't done a nothing. I never met these people. I literally thought I was signing up for a traditional school and showed up with my, new pencil case and my new notebooks and what the hell?
If you've ever been to one, you would laugh because you're like, I don't want to give anything away, but there were people in Wonder Woman weekend who came to me, Iana Van Zant, and I don't think they realized that it's a workshop. It's not a meet and a greet, right? There's
No. And literally she is the first one to
Oh
say,
my gosh.
if you came here for that, there's the door. Like literally, she's got none of the makeup and the celebrity. She is full on about the work. Like, no joke.
Mm.
I mean, she's as serious as a heart attack. And, friends of mine are like, how did you make it through? I don't know. But again, if spirit is involved, trust and
Yeah.
believe. I can journey, to the other side. We're getting ready to do rites of passage, I think June 7th. So when it's who you are and what you're called to do, you can go willingly or you can go kicking and screaming. And one of the things that I was constantly reminded about is even though I ran, I hid, all the things, it was always the love that brought me back, always.
Mm.
And I never experienced love like that. And sometimes it was hard. Sometimes it was, we'll just hold you just until. I just never experienced love like that. Again, so unconditional and so genuine and
Mm.
real and raw that there's no way I could be away from it for too long.
I'm getting a
Yeah.
little teary-eyed because that is the
Yeah.
same. I mean, I remember
Mm.
this turning point really early on, and that something had happened in session and with Laura, and I spent the whole week. I was so mean to her. Oh my gosh, she's not going to want to work with me. And we get back on the phone, and this is how I just clicked. I'm like, oh,
Mm.
these women are not, they're not playing. Like there's something else going on here because she just picked up the phone and she's like, oh, what's going on? Before I'd even really said anything. And I said, well, I just felt so bad all week. She's like, what happened? Right. And we know, like, I've grown and learned and, a lot since then, but I get a little teary-eyed because I just remember her saying to me, we're going to make one thing really clear. I love you. I'm not leaving you ever. And I think that you really need to hear that.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
that's why all these years later, when Laura says jump, I say, how fucking high do you want me to jump? And when she says call Nancy, I'm like, I know, because it is this space
Mhm.
of this isn't monetarily driven. This is really the work and helping people. So when you said that, I started to get teary-eyed, and I can attest that that's the space that you all
Mm.
create, and it's really beautiful.
And I have to say, I have
Mm.
been
I love that.
mothered and nurtured and cared for, and the same hands that have held me, I pray I can extend that out into the world. Sorry. That's my heart.
We don't apologize.
No, it's so beautiful. You both are making me think of just how many times you encounter people, and I'll say most, I'm I won't say just women, it's people in general, but in
Yeah.
my personal experience, there are a lot of women, and I don't want to exclude anyone because everyone deserves to have this space, but I personally know a lot of women who, who their whole lives have had to rationalize and logically because think their way through things because maybe it's how they survived for so long to only be able to find that sense of security and safety in their mind because they can rationalize it because they haven't, like you said, Nancy, before
Hmm.
about like I wasn't allowed to feel. And I've heard this in different people's lives and different experiences, but coming back to that same sense of like I couldn't feel. And so I became incredibly honed at being very, very smart, being very intellectual. I grew that strength, that muscle for so long because it helped me pull myself through in the way that I could until you can't anymore, or until you get to be in these spaces where people can truly help you get out of your mind and into your body. But that can't happen until you feel safe or held to do so, whether it's you holding yourself, and that takes work so much. Everyone gets there in different ways depending on your own, what you're going through and what you are here to do in your own process, your own perfect timing. But there is work involved, I think, to feel safe enough to relinquish the control of our mind in order to feel. And there's so much on the other side of that. That's just so powerful. And I love hearing about it because I can feel it through hearing, and it makes me think of so many instances. And like I said, not just women, actually probably know a ton of people who, I use the example all the time of, when you're a kid and maybe your parents argue or something and you get removed from the situation as if you aren't allowed to be witness to real emotions that aren't just the ones that are acceptable in that place and time. And what that can cause long term is that it feels very scary to feel. So it's
Big
such a
time.
beautiful thing.
Yeah. And that absolutely is why I chose to delve into the modalities that I explored, because it's almost like I had to outsmart my own self.
Yeah.
Meaning that, my brain couldn't figure out how tapping worked. My brain couldn't figure out how havening worked. All I knew was mentally and emotionally, something was shifting inside on my internal landscape. I couldn't
Mhm.
explain it. I couldn't, if I intellectualized it too much, I would just screw it up.
Mhm.
But I really had to, again, find safety, find security, and have it anchored in my being. I mean, that's the premise of havening, is the neuroscientists that created that modality. Haven is a safe place.
Mhm.
They worked with trauma, people who experience trauma, and most of people who experience trauma, it's not safe here in their bodies, in their mind, on the planet, name it. That it's just not safe to be them.
Mhm.
And we create a haven. We add an ing to the word haven because it's a doing. It's the application of touch. Well, what's the primal language of the caregiver? Touch. What's the first thing that they do with a newborn baby?
Mhm.
Hold it. And they need to feel their mother's touch. Well, most of us are taught, don't touch yourself. It has a sexual connotation, it's
Yeah.
bad, and we heap shame and guilt and all sorts of things. But if we're not familiar with our own touch, when we get into these adult relationships and we're sleeping with this one and sleeping with that one, we're not even comfortable with our own touch, but we're letting somebody externally touch us. What the heck?
Yeah.
So again, it's a appropriate touch. It's a safe touch to parts of our bodies that are naturally exposed, our face, our hands, our arms, so that it sends a message to that part of our brain, the amygdala, that goes into fear and goes to flight, fright, freeze, fawn, the responses that we just unconsciously and habitually enter into when we're really just out there wanting to return to love, wanting to be loved, and yet we go to fear because, again, that's how it gets wired in us. And so applying the touch and creating that safe place where it is safe to be you, it is safe to feel, to whatever. It doesn't even matter. But when we have that place of safety, a haven in our mind, in our body, in our spirit, we can make other choices and decisions, take other paths. And again, it creates new neural pathways. So we don't take the same habitual response or reaction to a trigger. Because, again, like I was sharing earlier with you two before we got on the call, I adopted this dog. We all have five senses, seeing, hearing, smell, touch, all the senses. He doesn't like the smell of coffee. He'll be 8 years old in August. I don't know how that got wired into his brain. I don't know if that's his previous owner drank a lot of coffee. I don't know. I'm not going to figure that out. And the same way that those things get wired into his brain, it's traumatizing for him. So can I sense and feel, okay, what would calm him? What would soothe him? Well, first, let's get rid of the coffee and then get him back to a safe place where this is his new home. I want him to feel safe here. And the same holds true for us. We may have gone through an experience. Maybe we lost a partner. Maybe we got in a car accident. However that gets wired in to our brain, it's through the senses, the sight, the smell, the taste, the sounds, and again, remaining curious to undo some of that, to allow the neuroplasticity of our brains to let go of some of it so that, again, we can restore safety in our bodies, in our minds, in our brains, and on the planet. So again, I had to outsmart my own self, even though I was like, how is touch going to help me? Like, really? Really? That's going to be it?
And since we're on the havening topic, let's just keep going down that way because I know you offer more modalities, but just as someone who practices havening with Nancy, well, first, you will show up if you want to schedule time with Nancy, and she'll walk you through the whole process and she'll talk to you about that, but you do not have to be in person. And so for me, that was really helpful because my trauma and my lack of trust and willingness to open up to just anybody, being on the phone and not looking at someone, but also feeling like Nancy just creates this super, super safe space. And it's almost hard when people are talking about what's going on in a havening session. It doesn't always look the same. Nancy, I can share my experiences of what's happened, but maybe for everyone else, it's helpful to understand what's the approach as a practitioner with havening and what might that experience look like for people who want to have sessions with you.
As a practitioner and also as a participant, because one of the things the analyst taught me was you can only coach, you can only practice as far as you're willing to go. I'm not just the hair club president. I actually practice this, but remaining open, remaining curious, and really listening to my client and using the words that they use. Again, not discounting the images, the thoughts, the experiences that come forward for them in a session. I mean, as you know, we laugh a lot of the time because you'll be like, yeah, I don't know if I should share this. This image is coming forward.
And that's the trust part in havening where, Nancy, I would not have been ready for your work 10 years ago. And that's like the divining, element of it, is that it was divinely timed for right now to do that deeper work. But having that trust, oftentimes you're asked about images, colors, things you're seeing, things you might hear. And the Allie previously, or Allie with no trust, I told you, I think our first session, I was like, I'm gonna just keep going because I'm a gold star student. So you're gonna have to stop me. And even just the customization of Nancy knowing that about me, it's almost hard to explain, but I've noticed in our sessions how she understands that that's a part of my soul and has adjusted our sessions where it's easier and in flow. So she can really customize these things that come up, when she said, does it have a sound? And I just started like laughing because it was Past the Dutch, Missy Elliott, the beginning of the song. Hooty hoo. So I was like, so I'm in this evening session and I have to just be like, well, the sound coming up, Nancy, is hooty hoo. Like, that's a relief. And I think that that is blessing and source. And not all sessions are that way. There have been sessions where I've literally been sobbing, say like I can't see anything, Nancy. Nothing is coming through. And so I've seen the gambit of I've shown up not thinking I need a session, and 2 minutes in, I'm sobbing and blowing my nose. Like, I guess I did need that session. So I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight just that it is very unique and it is very customized, and it does. Nancy's just, it's just such a gift for you. And I'd like to get your response before I share any other examples.
Yeah, but again, and I encourage this, with my clients, whether you work with me or not, I firmly and strongly believe in this is a very personal, intimate experience. Some of this stuff is buried in there. And so if this is stressful or challenging, by all means, you owe it to yourself to find a good fit. And if I don't feel like you're a safe person, I don't take it personal because I know the depths I had to go to in my heart and the depths in which I needed to learn how to trust. And if that's not in our client coach relationship, I want the best for you, find your person. If you're fascinated with havening, there are a lot of practitioners out there. But for me, the foundation of a relationship is trust. And if I haven't built that, and our relationship as a coach, as a client, even in a friendship, if that's not the foundation, I really don't want to be a part of it. Because again, then it's a setup. And from my heart, I want all of my clients to go out and be the best version of themselves that they can possibly be. And if that's not coming through in our sessions, then again, please matter enough in your own lives to go out and find the person that will support you in being the best version that you can be. I truly and firmly believe that, like in every fiber of my being.
Yeah, I've been able to open up to you and Laura so much because it is. And obviously you're not the only practitioners out there, but we can have all of these preconceived notions or blocks or things. And the time when I'm in crisis, you all pick up your phone and you're not sending me bills for it later on. This is a higher spiritual type of work. And the fact that you all both as well pass people along. So I just want to jump in because when you are saying this, Nancy, I'm here to just validate that this is the real deal. Early on, I was like, they're telling me that I'm good and I don't need any more sessions right now. And maybe I'll be back. I'm like, don't they want my money? Right. And it's not that I'm consciously thinking that, but that's how, when you have people in this space who aren't used to receiving, you
Yeah.
know, be
Hmm.
getting the gift without giving in return. Those are the things that are built on trust, and you live that and you preach that, and it's just been beautiful. So, Michelle, what's coming up? Any questions?
One, I was thinking about your profile again, the 2-5, and also what you said, a couple things that you said earlier on, about that you can sense and feel what's coming up, but also everyone's wired and conditioned so uniquely, so differently. And that really guides a lot of your process, which I love, but also what you said about, and I really wholeheartedly stand by this too. Like you can only, when you're coaching or you're guiding or any type of service-led work, like you can only go as deep as you're willing to go in your
Yeah.
own life, right? It's like you have to be about it, not just, my grandmother always would say, don't tell me, show me. That was her number one thing she would say, mostly to my dad. He needed it more than anyone. But that's so true because trust and integrity are real, but also if you don't know yourself, like there's that element of like and I'll quote Ram Dass again. My favorite quote is like I can do nothing for you but work on myself, and you can do nothing for me but work on yourself. And it just goes back to what you're saying of, if you don't know yourself and know
Hmm.
your own, what works for you, then, you enter into the wrong working relationships, which is why you have this like strong boundary for yourself of, if it's not the right fit, I want you to find the right person, because
Hmm.
the other flip side of that is like getting really drained. That's that 5-line energy too. When we enter into the wrong, and I would say the wrong, but not the right aligned partnerships and experiences that are really meant for us to enter into, it's so draining. And then I don't get to show up as the version that I want to be in that moment, which is where that deep seated integrity lies. And so I just love reflecting that back because it's so real. And I also think it warrants being said numerous times because there are so many practitioners and experts, whether it's in havening or tapping or coaching or all of
Hmm.
the modalities. We've been talking a lot about this lately of we're kind of, I think, getting towards this sort of tail end of this long journey of the guru and the experts in every field. And there's such great purpose in all of the things and all the emotions and all of the people that exist. And also, um, the more we really focus on that, the less we focus on our inner knowing and our inner trust and our inner insourcing safety and security in our bodies, which is at the core, that's more important than anything. And so I really love that. And I hope everyone, in the room or listening hears that, because I think a lot of people go to, whether it's therapy or any type of healing work, and if they don't get the right experience that they were looking for in that moment, or whatever it is, whether it's looking for it out of conditioning or looking for it out of pure just inner knowing and need, it can really turn them away from it. And I really hope that people hear this and know you can really, like, you're allowed to date around for the right fit, because at the end of the day, I think what you said was super like so real, was like, I hope that you matter enough to yourself that you will
Hmm.
go and find that person, because that's the real truth of it, is like you need to matter to yourself to know that just because one person, it's like yeah, so just so beautiful. I'm really excited to hear more about havening. I already have like a name written down that I want to refer to you because I was like, yes, actually,
Yeah.
like two people in my life who I love so deeply. And
And one of the things you touched on is reaching externally, that someone else will have the answer. That's one of the things that really drew me to the work, because I did believe that everyone else knew more than I did.
yeah,
And at some point, again, as children, we are conditioned to reach externally. The big people know more than us, the teachers, our peers, and we're conditioned that way. And one of my, I'm going to say, places and really areas of expertise became working with the inner children and the
mhm,
human developmental age stages, because again, I needed to get my inner children in line and together and what is going on inside of
Some
me?
point you were sharing during our last session, those stages. It really resonated with me because when we're talking about healing that child level, the different stages you were talking through. Do you remember what I'm saying?
Yeah. So again, this goes back to, studying for psychology, and this is Eric Erickson's human developmental age stages. So our first age stage is trust versus mistrust, which is, can I trust that I'm going to get my needs met by these big people? I've just been born into this world, and it's 0 to 18 months. Can I get fed? Can I get my diaper changed? Can I get held? Am I heard when I cry? All of those things. And can I trust the big people are going to take care of me? Our primary relationship is with the mother. We've been in her womb. We've listened to her heartbeat. She's feeding us. We're being nurtured inside of her, as well as she's taking care of her own self. And so again, 0 to 18 months, we're building trust or we're learning to mistrust based on what we sense and feel. Again, what we hear, what's going on in the mom's life, all of those things. Then the next phase is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Do I know that I can leave my mom's lap? I can go out and try some new things and I can return to the love. Or am I shamed for it? Do I doubt my autonomy, that I can be autonomous in the world? Again, this is foundational stuff that we start to build these ideas of, is it safe for me to be on this planet, in this family environment? Again, as I shared, I really believed I was born into the wrong family because these early developmental age stages, while I got fed and I got nurtured and I got the things, they were far from what was going on in my house. Then we move into initiative versus guilt. Can I take the initiative to do something new, or do I have guilt around what I do? And again, if it's not a supportive, encouraging environment, and again, life happens, I got to pay the bills, I got to get to work, blah, blah, blah. So we're not conscious of these things. But again, this is how the little ones start to determine how I survive in the world, in an atmosphere. Shame is there's something wrong with me. And guilt is there's something wrong with what I do. And so, again, very foundational. And I know for myself, I was steeped in shame. My dad's favorite line was, I'm so ashamed of you. Wow. Who says that to a kid? But don't bring any shame to this family. Okay. That's going to be helpful.
Do you need a mirror? Do you need a mirror, Mr. Yates?
Right. But having these things impressed upon us at such a young age, whoa, what do we do with that? Then there's industry versus inferiority. We move into school age and we get busy doing. I can earn good grades. Wow, I get praised for running the fastest at the 50, whatever it is. Or do I feel inferior? I can never measure up to the kids. I can't read as fast. I can't do math as well. Again, we start competing, and it's a higher level of thinking. We start to feed the intellect. And so those early foundational human age stages, when we get to the teens, which is identity versus identity confusion, who am I supposed to be in the world? Teens are out there dyeing their hair, piercings, oh, I want a tattoo. Oh, let me go sleep with this one. And all these changes are happening. If we haven't built a solid foundation, then my whole identity gets whacked out. They're developing their own ideas of who I get to be in the world. So many teenagers are angry. They'll fight you. They'll cut you because you're messing with who they get to be in the world. And they have enough life experience where, wait, I get to have a voice. I have some thoughts and ideas. I have some opinions. Don't disrespect me just because I'm 13 years old. Doesn't mean they're all, fully thought out or developed. However, we have to respect their life experience and see them for the individuals that they are. They see it through a different lens. And so even working with children, I work with teens 2 days a week, they teach me so much about, wow, I didn't see that through that lens. Because I'm grown. I'm not, bombarded with social media and, being bullied by someone over in Japan or, whatever. I didn't have that experience, but I can honor and appreciate their experience. And then when we move into young adulthood, it's intimacy versus isolation. We get into those intimate relationships, and intimacy is into me see. And are we transparent, or are we isolating? Are we hiding? And then we get into, it's the wisdom years, generativity versus stagnation. Again, we're looking at the ending years of our lives, if you will. And I may have missed one or two in there, but we're looking at what's our legacy going to be? Have we become stagnant? Am I just sitting in front of a TV, just waiting to die? Or am I regenerating generatively and again, leaving a legacy that lives on way beyond my physical body?
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know you were deep in thought, but that was something that was really huge in our last session. And Jen Stein's book, where she says, you are fucked up. You're fucked up because your parents fucked you up.
Yeah.
And your parents are fucked up because their parents fucked them up. And
exactly.
And that is quote unquote, I'm not just throwing my F-bombs in there. That is how the book reads, but it's how it resonated with me. And so getting to this place of, I believe my parents did the very best that they could with the tools and resources that they had available to them. And the verbiage that you put around that and tying it back to, hey, you needed this at this age, is not to point fingers at what you did or didn't get, but it allows me in this work with you to say, oh, that's why I've showed up this way. This is why I react this way. All the things. Curiosity. I think you talked about that earlier, Nancy. It's that curiosity and how did I get like this? Because I'm just a firm believer. I'm a whole adult now, and it is my responsibility. My parents did their thing, and now we get to start to look at it. So thank you for walking through those stages. I think it's really helpful to understand what we needed at that age.
Yeah. And ultimately, again, to circle back to what Michelle and I were talking about, at some point, we do have to take the answers from within. Stop reaching externally, take ownership and responsibility, and we become the big people. We pick up where the big people left off. We get to reparent those inner children that may not have gotten certain things and been able to maneuver through those conflicts. And again, this is not to blame or shame the mom and the dad, because that's what evolution is. They gave us what they got. They passed it on. What you do with it, that's now on you. You've been given a life and you get to choose. Listen, I don't like turkey. So Thanksgiving at my house, don't come to my house expecting turkey. It doesn't mean that I'm un-American or blah, blah, blah. I just don't like turkey. So that tradition, it's not happening. Again, no harm, no foul. If that's what my family wants to eat for Thanksgiving dinner, eat that. I'm having a hamburger. Okay? But we're good. Again, no blame, no shame, no guilt. And for a lot of years, I couldn't make sense of it. Also, what I want to encourage your listeners, again, you were a child at the time. Whatever went on, whatever went down, whatever you got, you didn't get. Don't look back on it through a lens of what you know today. You were no
Yeah.
match for the big people. Oh, I should have fought them off, or I could have said this. You're an adult now.
Hmm.
And, that little person at that age, again, impressionable, innocent, whenever something occurred in your life, the child is always innocent. Not to put blame or shame or point the fingers at mom and dad, you're right, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. Letting the little one off the hook. They did nothing wrong. What went down, went down. I'm really interested and curious about your thoughts, your feelings, what you told yourself as a result of that experience. Again, get to the heart of the matter, the root of the matter, and who you told yourself you needed to be as a result of whatever experience it was. And I'd be more concerned if you didn't have thoughts and feelings about an experience that went on in your house. And know that even if we grow up under the same roof, I have two brothers, two sisters, none of us can retell a story the same.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own experience of it and how it went down. And that's okay, as they should. We're all unique, we're all individuals.
Yeah.
And so honoring and respecting, you know what? That was true for you. Two things can be true at the same time, and not negating nor making someone bad or wrong because they had different thoughts and feelings about an experience.
One of our most profound sessions for me that I share is when I was asked, like, what color do you see? What do you see? And I might have shared this with you, Michelle, too. I had just finished watching Chimp Crazy on HBO. I just started giggling because I knew it was going to make Nancy laugh. I'm seeing gorilla fur, black gorilla fur. It's Tonka. And just for context, it takes me longer to explain it than it clicked in the session. But for those of you who have not seen Chimp Crazy, it's exotic animals kept in captivity. And these women really love these gorillas. They don't want PETA to come in and step in. And, you see her bringing in McDonald's. And when I saw Tonka in my session, it came so quick without getting too personal about life. But it's this premise of, oh, everybody around me loves me so much. And they want what's best for me. They think they know what's best for me and they want to hold on to that and they want me to thrive. But like I know what's best for me. And that was the Tonka. You think Tonka wants to be inside caged up eating McDonald's? That's not why chimpanzees were born. And so, Michelle, you watched it too. Yeah. Or no, she followed up. She knows where Tonka is now, Nancy. She knows what's going on with Tonka now.
Yeah, because I needed to know what happened because I had just simultaneously I was watching Chimp Empire, which was like mind blowing to me because obviously we share so much overlap in our DNA, and so it's really fascinating and it's also heartbreaking because yeah, I mean I like to think one I'm like here to be a literal open mind, so it comes more naturally to me to be able to see, and have empathy or compassion, or at least be able to see where someone's coming from, even if I don't agree with the way that they're doing it. But yeah, and I was watching animals in the wild, living their lives like untouched, just observing for 20 years of experimenting. And so I was watching these two things like close in time. But it is really fascinating. And you make me think of Allie, because we talk about this all the time, is Women Who Run with the Wolves, right? And the entire premise is like, everything we are conditioned is to teach us to move further away from these animal qualities. And to what you've been saying too, Nancy,
Mm-hmm.
is to be in connection with our senses because animals are so deeply in touch with their senses. That's how they guide through the world, is by being so honed in on those physical senses. And we are so conditioned to do everything to get away from those and to get away from the raw and the wild that is truly at our core in so many ways. But
And that really ties into, again, the work that I do, that I want to do in the world, is getting each of us back to our true nature essence, and at the core, who did we come here to be?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, ultimately, love, peace, joy, all the things, and be that, do that. Because all that other stuff that we've been conditioned, a bird doesn't try and go out and try and be a fish.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just be a bird. Okay, let's do that. Be the best human being you can be. Not because Vogue tells me I need to wear this or I need to have this or I need to drive a certain car, and not that there's anything wrong with that. By all means, if that feeds your spirit, go for it. Enjoy and live it to the fullest. But at the end of the day, who do I get to be? Who was I born to be? And what I know to be true is I was born for a time such as now.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Craziness and the chaos and the all the energies that are swirling around on this planet, and we're called to a higher realm because I made the commitment to be here at a time such as now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I so resonate with that. And just talking about Allie's experience working with you and also just the ability to develop self-trust and all of those things and trust in your partnership. I think we all come to that, or we do or we don't. But when we come to those things like that inner trust or that inner knowing or acceptance of what is versus trying to change the past and letting that guide how we live our lives now, we all come to it in such different ways and at different
Yeah.
times, and then it settles, I think, in like layers of understanding. Like anything, it comes back around and you're like, oh, I see it and I understand it in a different way now, because I've had to experience this lesson maybe in another part of my life or whatever it is, or deepening in the lesson. And I really am such a believer that in our soul contracts, that like when you say, I for a long time I believed I was born into the wrong family, and it's like this beautiful journey of coming full circle. And for me, I always feel like, even when I felt that way or in my depths of my own despair at times, it's like coming back to it and understanding like there's a reason why, like you said, I was born for this work and you were born into this family so that you could do the work, live it, so that you could actually really hold that space for others to do it in such integrity. And I love to witness the full circles back. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And to see more people's examples of it, because it kind of helps us see, it's like seeing is believing, we always say, and you get to see it. It may be very different from your story, and it may be very different, the timing and how you get there, because it's supposed to be. But at the end of the day, um, I always think of like, I get to choose, I get to decide every single day. I get to be the one, and I don't have to, no one's forcing me to. I can choose to be in the same patterns over and over, but I get to decide today. Like you said, who am I here to be? And it doesn't always have to be this deep, like profound. Sometimes it's like today I get to just be the person that is like, has a little more ease, and, or with Allie, it's like, I get to sleep in a little bit today and accept that. And that's
Exactly.
okay. And that's okay. That's who I get to be, because there's an element of that is my highest expression, because at the core of it there's like this just ease or acceptance. And it's so beautiful. But not to switch gears too fast, but we didn't touch on tapping yet. But my question was more about like, between some of the modalities, how do you know, or how, of course, there's the intuition piece, but how do you know when you choose to use one tool maybe over another, say havening or tapping, or do you naturally blend them in sessions? How does that work?
Well, first of all, I have a daily spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I am very committed and disciplined in it. And it doesn't mean that I don't have flexibility, because on any given day it can look very different. However, I do have my texts that I specifically read, and I do ask if there is an additional one, what is it? And let it be revealed to me, and not, oh, I know, and just jump out there and pick up
Yeah.
any old thing. However, I'm up every day at 4 a.m. I am committed to prayer, meditation. This is not necessarily doing, although it is a doing, this is my lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is how, again, I get to choose how I start my day. And this is what feeds and nurtures my practice, my life, that keeps me mentally as healthy as possible, emotionally as healthy as possible, physically and spiritually as healthy as possible. Doesn't mean I don't get crazy and lose my mind. I'll come back, but
Mm-hmm.
this is, again, this is the foundation, how I like to start my day. Typically, when I work with the client, I will pray for them, and I will also ask, my guides, what is it that they need? Is it tapping? Is it havening? Is it coaching? Is it, I have a toolkit, if you will, voice dialogue, painting, different things. And again, am I even equipped to work with them? Do I have what their spirit is calling forth at this time? I do, if, for instance, Allie will call and I got an emergency, okay, typically I'll muscle test my own self and ask quickly, is it tapping? Is it havening? And if I get a yes, then I go with that. If I don't have time to actually go into prayer or meditation about my clients, but I do a lot of prep work. Just because, again, how can I be of greater service to my clients, to my own self? Because, like you said earlier, if I start to work with a client and it doesn't line up, I don't want to feel drained.
Mm-hmm.
And energetically, I don't want to take on their stuff. It's not my stuff to carry. And so being clear about, hey, this is their session. This is not about me. Yes, I can facilitate it. However, what is in the highest and best good for them at this time?
Yeah.
One thing I've really appreciated about working with Nancy and when I've referred people over to her is this element where I was referred technically for havening, right? And that deeper work, but really just showing up with Nancy. I know that I have a lot of different modalities that are at the disposal. And that's part of that trust as well, is that, and it's not like today we're doing tapping, but I know Nancy's process now. And so a lot of times, I mean, we've had sessions where I'm like, you've just given me a whole coaching session. So let's reschedule a having session for next week because it's not fair to double book you on a session, right? But now it's just a point where I can say, what's showing up? And she's like, well, tapping came up. How do you feel about that? It's never, this is what we're doing today. But
Yeah.
I do love Nancy's offerings, her spiritual work as it shows up, because there's movement in there
Yeah.
and it feels really divinely aligned. And it's these shoulds of what we also get stuck in, these shoulds of what you should do. And I know you both know this story, but it was, well, you should go to therapy, during my whole big bang. You should be going here. You should be going there. So what did I do? Like, well, let me find a therapist. Okay. And then the first session, we're going to try tapping with you. And I'm just sitting here going, why the fuck am I not working with Nancy with tapping just because it's a quote unquote therapist office? But I already have that modality with somebody that I'm fully trusted and aligned with. And again, it goes back to that theme of knowing what you need and not having to answer to anybody else for what they need. So
Yeah. I also really love, Nancy, what you said about I do a quick muscle test because I think it just perfectly paints the picture of what it looks like when you said, I have a strong discipline to my personal practice, my spiritual daily practice. And when you build up, and I think discipline can look slightly different from person to person, right? In the sense that, but the point is, are you showing up for yourself? Are you returning it? Like for me, I can always discern when there's a few days where I just need to fall off my practice for a few days because like either it's kind of becoming a little like too monotonous for me and I need to change it up and maybe my meditation turns into a 2-hour walk, or it shifts from day to day, but I can tell what feels like me falling off and just turning away and falling into resistance or into whatever mode that isn't supportive or healthy for me. And when it's just a few days and I come right back to it, because there's always a pull back to it. And I think when you develop it, and I'm by no means super a disciplined person, but I think I've built up enough of a habit with my practices. But what you said about, I'm super disciplined about it so that you built up this strong muscle that when in the moment you're able to do, and I've never heard the words like a quick muscle test, so I wrote it down so I can borrow it, because it perfectly it paints the picture for me, that visual of like, yeah, that's what it means to develop a practice that's so a way of life. It's who you are. It's not just a thing that you do. It's everything. It's about who you are and the person that you are today. And so you're able to call on that muscle in the moment when you need it. And I just love that so much. So that was really, really cool to hear too.
And one of the things that I really want to, again, encourage your listeners, I was raised in the church and all of those things. And part of my ministerial walk was unlearning all of those things, and not to discredit, because again, it was a really good foundation for me because it was an extended family. However, a daily spiritual practice, really making it personal. Again, tapping into what feeds and nourishes and nurtures your spirit. Because don't just make it a doing, oh, they said I need to read these prayers, or they said I need to do it this way. If it's not feeding and nurturing your spirit, your being, and expanding, your mind, your body, your heart, what are you doing it for? But really making it personal. Iyanla taught us personal, practical, and possible. Because again, if it's going to be a practice, you really want it to be doable and manageable, and don't, okay, I need to develop a daily spiritual practice. Well, I'll read the Bible from the beginning to the end, and then I'll do this and that and that. Again, you want to ask, what am I really doing this for? To prove something to somebody externally, or am I really doing it to feed and nurture my own being? And over the course of the years, again, this is not just, oh, I just decided today. This has been a practice, just like an athlete would practice, to play their best game. It's developed and it's matured and it's grown and it's shifted over the years. And certain readings I've outgrown. Certain new readings will reveal themselves. But always in it, there are readings involved for me, and I am a ferocious reader. I love to read. So, words just absolutely will feed and nourish me in ways I have.
But your hope prayer is permanent, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Please share what the hope prayer is.
Oh, so
she got it tattooed on her.
We shortened it to the hope prayer. But it's the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is a Hawaiian process that clears and cleanses your heart, your mind, your body, your spirit. Because again, we're either fear-based or we're love-based. And either the fears from the past, the memories, the belief systems, the judgments, the perceptions, the lenses, the views that we, were who we thought we needed to be, what we thought we needed to do, how we needed to survive in the world. We're either holding on to them, very attached to them, or we're getting back to the love, returning to the love that we truthfully are. All of us are at our true essence, our true nature, our true core. We are love. And so it's 4 lines, and I use it all the time. I pray it for my inner children. If I have an upset with somebody, the first line is, I love you. I love you, Nancy. The second line is, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to live in fear. I'm sorry you had to live in shame and guilt and blame and all the things and didn't know how loved you truly are. I am so sorry. Then the third line is, please forgive me. Please forgive me for holding on to any beliefs, any thoughts, ideas, memories, being attached to leaning on my own understanding of what's going on in this experience. Please forgive me for not recognizing the love that you are, the love that I am. Please forgive me. And then the last line is, thank you. Thank you for being my greatest teacher. Thank you for showing me the pieces and parts of your heart where you still are afraid, where you still hold on to guilt and shame and fear and doubt and worry and all the things that keep us from the love that we truly desire. Thank you. I journal a lot. Another favorite of mine is the meditation, METTA, and extending, the well wishes to my own self first, then a person I love, person, who's neutral that you may not know, and then a person that I'm in conflict with.
Yeah.
But that sounds like, may I be happy? May I be healthy? May I be peace and joy? And may I be free from harm and struggle. And then again, extending those 4 lines or those well wishes to someone I love, someone that is neutral, maybe a neighbor, maybe a cashier at, Walmart, and then somebody I'm in conflict with. And then eventually, as we grow that practice, extending it out into our communities. May all living beings be happy. May they all be healthy. May they all find peace and joy, and may they all be free from harm and struggle. So that, again, we send those energies out into the world. And again, it's cleansing and clearing my heart of the hate, of the prejudices, of the judgments, of anything that is unlike love.
Yeah. The thing I find myself repeating a lot too, Nancy, with that I've learned from you is I can only go as fast as the slowest parts of me want to go. It's one I find myself repeating a lot from our earliest journey. I very much look for the should. What can I do to get the fix? And a lot of these last 2 years, as I alluded to with the therapy story, is a lot of eyes and thoughts on what my healing journey should look like, including a time frame. And that's, along with Nancy just told me to call it the hoe prayer because I can't ever remember the whole thing. So we also get a little giggle of it. So thank you for sharing those with me, because I think for those looking for practices, it could literally be just not gaslighting your healing process, and just every morning when you wake up saying your practice could be, I can only go as fast as the slowest parts of me want to go. And that it could start there. It could start with a journal, but I just love how your work and the things you do also give me really actionable items to apply to my life, but as they resonate with me.
Yeah.
And you make a really valid point, because again, coming from a place of feeding the intellect, the simpler that you make it, the more, again, personal it will become. I was a person who had to overcomplicate things because, again, then if it was complicated and hard, it had more value and more worth.
Oh, because you have to work hard for the outcomes you want, right?
Exactly, right. But the more I made it simple and manageable and doable, the more invested I became. And again, dialing back, because again, the ego is going to complicate everything. The ego is going to say, oh, that's not enough. You do need to do more. 15 minutes isn't enough to do anything. You should sit for an hour. Well, if I'm fussing and fighting and struggling for 45 minutes out of an hour, how helpful is that? It's not helpful to me.
Yeah.
I don't want to live my life from that negative space of, oh, this is torture, this is punishment. I already did that as a kid. Thanks. I don't want to do that.
No thanks anymore.
Yeah.
Allergic, sorry.
We're done with that. Now, I'm
Um,
wondering if we could explore just a little bit more about tapping before we get into our rapid fire. I know we've thrown it out there.
Yeah, so with tapping, again, Iyanla exposed me to tapping. There are different forms of tapping. The tapping protocol that she exposed me to was EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. With that, not good or bad, right or wrong, you create belief scripts. So basically, the stories that we tell and the beliefs that we held on to, even though I was shamed as a kid, I love and accept myself. Even though my dad was violent and brutal, I love and accept myself. And you create these belief scripts for whatever the issue is that you're tapping on. Now, tapping was created by a psychologist who he wanted, again, his clients to have greater success in their sessions. And what he was recognizing is talk therapy wasn't doing it. I mean, yes, it had its value and they got the issues out, but he was also at the same time studying Chinese medicine. And Chinese medicine is all about energies. We have meridians in our bodies, and the same with acupuncture. There are certain points that, if you stick a needle in there, it will, release the energies. And so there's meridians in our bodies, energy highways, if you will. And if we tap on different points, then the energy will be freed up. It will continue to flow. And that's, again, the theory when we have an upset is that the energy gets blocked. And we want to restore the free movement of the energies in our bodies. So while I learned EFT, again, working with clients that have trauma, most clients don't want to talk about it, don't want to relive it. And so the tension, it's really called trauma tapping technique. However, in the psychology field, when you use the word trauma, there's a whole thing. So that's why we kind of moved away and said tension tapping technique. But the couple that created this modality discovered that you could tap on the points, but the individuals didn't necessarily have to speak out and retell the whole story again. And because this couple works in a lot of third world countries and travels significantly all over the world, they didn't want a language barrier to come into play and not have, allow people to have the benefits of the tapping technique. So there are different points that you tap as a client. You don't have to tell me what the issue is. However, I will do a check-in where you rate the stress, the tension, the trauma, whatever the upset is, so that we have a starting point. And if you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the greatest and 1 is the least, so at least we will be able, as we move through the tapping, by the end of the session, to go in and, now that we've tapped on it, let's re-rate it so that we can see if the number has come down. And that is the goal, to bring the number down. Because again, if you could get the energy moving and restore peace or even a sense of safety in your body, you can start to make choices from a different perspective. Because if you start making choices in a heightened emotional state, it usually doesn't turn out well for most of us. So if we can tap, and I like to call it emotional hygiene, emotional and mental hygiene, just like you wash the outside of your body, havening and tapping absolutely cleanse the internal landscape for ourselves. So that's how I hold it. And so, daily, just as I take a shower or brush my teeth or wash my face, I tap or I haven or do something for my internal landscape to kind of clean it up a little bit. I hope that's helpful.
That's really helpful. And I've practiced some tapping before, and and I always find any connections to traditional Chinese medicine, to the meridians, always such a beautiful overlap because um, one of my many of my soapboxes, one of them is the way that science proves what so many ancient civilizations have known and practiced for years and years before the existence of modern day science. And so this is one of them. And yesterday I had a really, really beautiful conversation with a friend. And one of the questions that came up was, what are you learning to let go of? And one of the things we talked about, she said, the pressure to do or be more than what already exists within me. And we talked
Mm,
about the parallel to acupuncture and how acupuncture, like you said, right? It's not
yeah.
about adding more into the body. It's about removing the blockages that exist so that so that our energy, our life force, and with that, all of that comes with that can flow naturally so that we can be connected to what already is within us. And
Mhm.
so I love like just the synchronicities of the conversations and how they always come back and everything is so connected. And there's such a wealth inside of us, inside of our physical bodies, inside of our spiritual bodies, all of it,
Yeah.
that speaks to the same concepts, but in different words. And that's what I love about the overlap of language, because my initial understanding of tapping was through the emotional freedom technique, which I think for me, what I experienced is that sometimes trying to logically come up with the statements versus feel into them can be a little bit of a hindrance,
Sure.
which is why it's
Yeah.
important to have the right practitioners and the right guides through these modalities. But that's something that I experienced. And so hearing you talk about that, it doesn't need to be said out loud, and that it does need to be more personal. I think that was one of the things that kind of, for me, I needed to go a little bit more personal and really not feel like, oh, is anybody listening to me? Can I do this just with myself? And also, you mentioned in the shower, something I often do is like in the shower is when I'll be doing certain things, because it's that moment that you're like,
Yeah.
no one is, it's that one solitude moment for most people. um, yeah. And so I one of my questions was, and maybe this kind of brings us towards the end of our conversation a little bit. I didn't do any rapid fire yet, but what is something that you wish more people would know or hear or understand about just the healing journeys in general?
For me, it all comes back to trust and trusting.
Mhm.
One of the key things that the inner children learn to do is to betray themselves, betray their own needs, wants, and desires, because out of fear, they believe that if I betray my own self, meaning I deny my own needs, wants, and desires, I will get the love from the big people. But if we can get back to trusting our own intuition, our own guidance, our own feelings and sensations in our body, wow, this is here to let me know something else is going on. Just like with a car, if the check engine light goes
Mhm.
on, it doesn't mean we have to stop everything and scrap the car. It just means we need to look under the hood.
Yeah.
But trusting the guidance that you get, because most of us will get, oh, I was feeling nauseous, or I got a knot in my stomach, or my pinky toe started to twitch, or my eye started to twitch. Pay attention to those subtle sensations, because your body has been with you your whole life. It registers everything. And again, not denying, rejecting, abandoning what the messages and signals are that your body is letting you know. Long before you feel a pain or a twitch, or you already know the answers. And so
Mhm.
trusting your own self. if you feel uncomfortable in somebody's presence, it's okay. You don't necessarily have to say, listen, I feel uncomfortable in your presence. There's something wrong with you. You can just choose to move away. But trust your own intuition, your own guidance. It's built into all of us. And again, it's not something you'll get externally, but the more you connect with your own self and trust your own guidance, you'll be led, and don't discount the intelligence that's inside of each and every one of us. And we all get it differently. So if it's unique, but not negating it or discounting it or dismissing it, but really paying attention to that.
One quick story about, just because I think it brings a
Yeah.
full circle with that topic from your work, Nancy, is that when I was younger, there was obviously with females and how we're conditioned to treat each other, some of the biggest things I held in my body was the way that I treated other girls when I was younger. And the concept doesn't matter. There was one in particular. And when I say this has followed me decades, and when I was around 30s, I had said to a childhood friend, I really want to just find her, reach out, and just apologize. That's awful. It's terrible, right? And so that's my inner knowing. You're not that person. You've grown past it, and all the things. And I remember then someone said, "Oh my God, do not do that. Who cares?" And then you fast forward to another decade, and this is still on my mind, and it's even more on my mind. And really doing that spiritual work of what's the outcome. And again, to your point, right? Like I had to get to a point where send it and let it go. But I sent it and I didn't let it go. But I'll tell you what happened. I let it go. We're in a havening session, and this color pink kept coming up that I can only discern now is just this stereotypical, because we don't get to, as Nancy tells me, we don't get to tell our subconscious how it pulls up things for us and how it tells us stories. But really this divine feminine energy, I had forgotten all about it. And within an hour, I got a response from her. And it was a really, I hope, very healing for her. It was very healing for me. It didn't just end there. We had some conversations, but that is this work when we can lean into it. And havening, I think it gave me that permission and tapping. Who are you? Who are you at your soul? And whoever the shame of like, no, you don't need to apologize for what you did before you knew better. Well, no, my soul was saying you do need to apologize for before you knew better. And again, that is just like the whole how I see all of this work come together. And Nancy, I think you're really a catalyst for that.
And before we get started, I just yes, that I can only move as fast as my slowest part wants to go. That is a lyric in a song, so I don't want to take credit for that. Like I
should have said that. Yes, I did know. Yeah.
Okay. Again, copyright, and I don't want to that's not mine, but it resonated with me, so I pass it on to everyone. But
channeling, and that's how messages get passed and sentiments get passed. Send me that. I'll find the song again. I'll put it in the link of the show notes. How about that? Give her credit.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put it on Instagram, as we love to use music to set the tone. Okay, perfect. Well, it's still a really, really good quote, and we won't say that Nancy wrote the song.
No, I did not.
She wrote. No. Okay, so we did talk a little bit about quotes. We talked about, but what is a book or a podcast that has had a significant impact on you?
Oh God, so many. Again, I am a ferocious reader, so certainly Ianla's books, just opened me to the whole spiritual world. Currently, I can say this is a book that I am studying and rereading and going back to. It's called The Magic of Surrender, and it's by Kute Blackson, Kute Blackson, Blackson. And then there is a book on the Ho'oponopono process, prayer, and I think it's called The Easy Life. Those are what I am currently study, reread, and I don't typically reread a whole lot of stuff.
Mm.
However, clearly surrender and letting go has to be a practice in my life. Again, beliefs, attachments to my perception, and because I don't honestly don't know what any of this means. At the end of the day, I attach a lot of meaning to a lot of things. And so, again, surrendering my understanding of what this life is and how is helpful for me to have less struggle, less harm, less fight, less suffering in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you answered so many of the questions that I had prepared just naturally. The intuition game is strong, Nancy.
Intuition
But
is strong with this one.
there were so many questions as I was like teeing them up, and you were like answered, 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 and so I really love that. And also, I forgot to mention the meta meditation, which also, if for anyone listening, some people also called it the loving kindness meditation. So if you're looking for
Yes.
it, I really recommend this too, because that particular meditation was that was the catalyst for a lot of my healing journey. It was one of the first types of meditations that I did that really landed for me. And it was super emotional. I feel like like a whole well just spilled over when I first listened to that some time ago. And it was really necessary because I don't think I would have embarked on such a deep healing journey that still on, it surprises ever all the time. But if I didn't open up to being able to move out of my own beliefs and my own issues that I had with, certain person and um and that was really, really powerful. And sometimes I think that we can, like we've said so much, we can intellectualize so much, but also there's so much we're inundated with because of social media, because of all the accessibility of being in the digital age, which is, serves a purpose, but also can become really, really overwhelming and make us feel like we need to do more or do what everyone else is doing. But that meditation is actually so simple and so deep and profound. And I think, yeah, it's just a really powerful one because it is really difficult to heal your own and accept and love yourself if you cannot. As my wise uh wish she was my adopted mother, RuPaul says, how can you love yourself if you can't, or how can you love anyone else if you can't love yourself? And I'm like, yes, so
Hmm.
true. And we can love other people, we can love and we can hold space, but it's a different layer unlocked when you can accept yourself on a deeper level and have compassion for the shame and the guilt and the fear that we've lived within for so long. And so I had to just shout that one out while I was back on my mind, because that meta or loving kindness meditation is just so, so beautiful. It was such a powerful shift for me in my journey. So some time ago. And so I really love that. But the last question I'll ask you, well, I actually have two questions. If there is any memorable feedback that maybe you've gotten from a client or student.
Wow. Um, Probably don't be so hard on yourself
Mm,
and be gentler. And for all that you give, be open to receive.
mm,
Yeah, it's probably, don't be so hard, be gentler to your own self. And, again, for all that you give, be open to receive.
that's so lovely to hear that and
Mm.
to receive that from someone that you've probably really helped.
If I could just edit that a little from unexpected sources, again, because my attachment, it needs to come from a specific individual or from, a specific place and in my mind and my attachment to that. again, the universe is really generous, and being open to receive from various, channels and paths and whatever.
All right, Nancy, what does self-love mean to you?
Oh, oh. Okay, so the first word that comes to mind is relax. Just relax. Again, I think we touched on this, the simplicity and the ease and the grace, and just not getting caught up in the shame or the guilt and the all the things that may have been I took on or I carried, but really letting those things go and releasing and relaxing into this thing called life, which has been an extraordinary journey.
Maybe we need a 3-person catch up sometime. You got some great stories that I want Michelle to hear right from your mouth. But for the meantime, just Nancy, we're so grateful. And I always say, in a lot of ways, you've helped save me and my life. And so I'm just really, really grateful for you and your energy. And I know the people that I have referred to you are in the best of hands. And I know the impact that you've given them as well. For our listeners, if you are interested in reaching out to Nancy, the best place to get in touch with her is her email, Nancy Yeates, which is Yeat as in Tom, E as in Eric, S as in Sam, at Verizon.net. We'll also tag her in the show notes as well. And you can hit us up on DMs too, and we can get you in touch if you need to. But without further ado, we'll let this episode come to a close, but just give our extreme love and gratitude to you, Nancy, and all that you give to the world and all that you do.
Thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in. If you resonate with today's conversation, connect with us on Instagram at Karmic Mirror Podcast and send us a message.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen. And if you're loving Karmic Mirror, we'd appreciate a glowing review or a share with someone who could benefit.
As we close, remember, life is not a one-size-fits-all approach. How are you honoring your unique path? Stay curious and always be kind to yourself. Until next time on Karmic Mirror.